Welcome back to the Subtle Sport Podcast. As always, this podcast is sponsored by ERG Builders. Now, ERG Builders are the main sponsor for the podcast this year, and we're glad to have them on board. Now, ERG Builders are based in Northamptonshire and the Kettering area, and they aim to be the contractor of choice in the residential and commercial sector, approaching their work with honesty and integrity. If you want to get in contact with them, head to 077 363 74821 or head to their website, www.ergbuilders.co.uk. Thank you to them for their support this year. It's greatly appreciated. And moving on to today's episode then, once again, I have Zach with me. Zach, how are you, buddy? And are you looking forward to football's return on Saturday?
Good. Yeah, been good. Looking forward to football being back on Saturday. Should be a good game with St Albans versus Chatham. But yeah, good to get another episode in this week.
Yeah, exactly. And with football starting on Saturday, I thought it would be only right to try and, talk to my club's manager, Simon Hollyhead. Simon Hollyhead, the manager of Kettering, of course. Simon, thank you for joining us today, mate. And how are you?
My pleasure. Good, Aaron. Good. And good to meet you both.
Perfect. I mean, let's get into, today's episode then, lads. And we'll kick it off then, Simon, with you just giving us a little bit of a background of your career so far, a little overview to yourself, where you've coached, where you've worked, everything in between.
Well, ironically, I was born at the time that Ron Atkinson was managing Kettering, but I know he was there for 3 years, so I'm going to sort of leave it up to other people to guess how old I am. But look, football was a crucial part of my family growing up, and born and bred in West Bromwich. It's something that has a close association, as I said, with Kettering. And my early memories, visiting the Hawthorns, asking my dad, who's the manager in the late 70s, and he was telling me all about Ron Atkinson, and this guy's been at Kettering and Cambridge, and now at the Hawthorns. So, look, during the last 50 years, it's allowed me to travel a lot and experience so many different things that I think sport can only teach you.
Yeah.
It's just ironic. It feels like full circle and back to Kettering at the end of the end of last season, but more importantly, looking forward to this season.
No, exactly. And then you obviously mentioned there that you're a West Bromwich fan, grew up in the area, and so forth. Were you much of a player in your early days in your career, or was it a case of just always go straight into coaching?
Yeah, I think every child has ambitions to play at the top level and see themselves on television. And look, most coaches end up sort of accepting at some point that they're probably not going to play in the Premier League or the Championship or the EFL. My journey was no different. I played youth team football at West Brom at the end of the season. I remember vividly the conversation with my parents and the coaches, and they said, "Look, Simon's just not big enough." And that's the first time I really sort of took a view about how coaches operate. I thought instantly, why are these guys not honest?
Yeah.
Just say the reason we're not sort of taking him on board is because we feel that he needs to work on this, he needs to work on that. And at the moment, we've probably got 4 other midfielders who are ahead of it. No problem. That would have allowed me to actually make a decision at that point. And at that stage, my parents said, look, people can say what they want about you in life, but they can never take your experiences away, and they can never take your qualifications off you.
Yeah.
So you're going off to university, son. So that was like the first non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Look, it allowed me to go to Leeds and study a degree and sports science. And sandwiched in between that was 6 months coaching and playing out in South Africa, which again improved my life experience as well. And as we all know, university allows us to follow a course, but it also teaches you an awful lot about yourself. And I think it fits in very well with the education system today, which for a lot of establishments is built on core values of respect and timekeeping and determination, and these were things that obviously carried me through university and normal stuff. Great experience in the classroom, great experience out the classroom, and not only learn about yourself, you also learn how to pay a student loan off. So you understand the value of money.
Yeah.
You know, so look, this is life in England for many people, as we know, and certainly coming from a very working class family, a very working class area. I think, you know, you can take the boy out of West Bromwich, as it were, but you can't take West Bromwich out the boy, some would say. So you could probably sense a hint of the Black Country accent.
Just a touch, yeah, just
coming
a touch.
across, yeah. Thank you for being so kind. And then just moving on from that, I had a wonderful opportunity through playing sport to actually take a slight detour, and I was approached by Warwickshire County Cricket Club to oversee and lead all their sort of performance department, and that wasn't certainly something that I focused on, but from my experiences and also from education, it presented that opportunity. But that fitted together really, really well with my football, because as we know, the two sports actually do sit very well together, and in terms of the seasonal adjustments. And throughout the winter months, I was doing my coaching badges, getting really good coaching experience at different places, and I think that's really important. I know there's obviously 5 levels to the coaching ladder, but honestly, there's no replacement for time on the grass with different experiences, and having to adapt to different situations. And that's that. I look back at that period, and it's a very important part of my coaching journey. I understood about, you know, adaptability, the importance of planning, all those kind of things that you're taught on these courses, but it's paramount that you actually get on the grass and have to deal with them, and actually deal with different players, different characters, whatever the drill, whatever the session you've got planned. It looks great often on a piece of paper, but in reality it looks different on the grass, and that's something that only obviously experience can give you. We know a lot of stuff today is accessible online, but there's nothing like that feeling of actually having to stand there, deliver sessions, adapt to situations, and it really does, I think, enhance your abilities as a coach, as someone who's a leader, because we know that the comfort zone is the root of all evil for development. And you know, the fact that you actually have to put yourself in those situations really did give me a really, really solid grounding, and it allowed me to really progress. I think we all like immediacy today, but to actually pass certain stages, and then, like the recommendation, 2 years now working in these phases or this part of the coaching, I had those opportunities to work on those things during the winter, and really experience different levels, whether it be sort of starting off aligned with the basic coaching level, but having played, having coached, having played a lot with universities as well. Of course, you have a real genuine feeling for the game of what it's like inside the white line. But then to actually develop your leadership, your management, your coaching experiences, I say, was invaluable to me looking back. And I think that's something that shouldn't just be fast tracked. No. I know that coaches like to get there. They like to get the tracksuit on with a club. I fully understand that. But today, substance for me always supersedes style. Yeah. And it's vitally important that you put yourself in those situations. So I learned a lot, both on the course, but I learned an incredible amount from the people who were on the course but away from the course. And sharing those experiences is often something that a lot of coaches talk about, because we've all got different experiences in life. And how did you adapt to this situation? How do you, the courses are designed to give you the nucleus of of that aspect of coaching. Of course, there has to be a common ground, but to actually learn from other people's experience, and it's been invaluable in my coaching journey. And that obviously led me on to getting the opportunity to do some part-time work with the FA. And it was at that point that I got an approach from Malmo to go abroad. 2010. My son was 3, my daughter just been born, and it took a huge decision, a family decision, to actually leave England. Parents were getting older, and I was acutely aware of that as well. But it's something that needs complete support from everybody in your inner circle, and only those closest to you actually know you and know what it means, and that's obviously something that I had to consider and take on board. But speaking to the people, my wife, obviously my children were too young to give an opinion then, but they're old enough now to certainly give their opinions. So, and obviously parents and extended family members, it was crucial really to understand what that would mean.
Yeah.
And I had an incredible 4 years at Malmo, and it said everything to me, having spent the first 4 days there with Roland Nielsen, who was manager and, as we know, had a fantastic pedigree playing for Coventry and more notably Sheffield Wednesday and managing clubs in this country. Within an hour of actually being in Sweden, I realised the connection that I could have with this person, and I just look back on that Friday when I first met him, and then I flew back the following Monday after spending 4 days at the club, and it was a unanimous no. Not really. It was a unanimous yes. And within, as I say, 1 hour, I was texting my wife and saying, "Wow, this," and it wasn't a financial decision. It was a decision that we took that I believed was right for me, which ultimately would prove right for my family.
Yeah.
So there was extended circumstances to that, and within a week of being at the club, I was back. I'd sort of relocated, and the chief exec called me to his office before the first game the following weekend. We were travelling on the bus on the Friday morning after training, and he said to me, "Simon, where's the family?" And I said, "Well, look, at home, my son's about to start school, my wife, my family, are living there, and my daughter's only just been born." And he said, "Look, Simon, you need them with you to do this job properly. You need the support of your family. You need those people with you who know you and give you the balance." And that was a real eye opener, because I think a lot of coaches would recognise when they go somewhere new, they're really trying to get their feet under the table, commit 18 hours a day to the club. And he said, I get all that, but it's about quality. It's not about quantity. And for you to make quality decisions, you need those people around you who give you the balance. And that chief exec at the time taught me everything, because as far as I knew it, it was Volvo, ABBA, Stockholm. Those are the things I had in my head for Sweden. So to see how they fitted into Scandinavian life just submerged me straight away and made me realise what the importance is of being a good person.
Yeah.
The importance of actually, we all want to work with players, but it's really the essence of the person behind the player is what makes the difference, and understanding that. And yeah, that led me to have 4 fantastic years at Malmo, where I just learned so much about myself. I learned so much about coaching, managing people, and I look back, and when I first arrived, we had 13 nationalities in the dressing room. And I thought, how am I going to understand Swedish, Norwegian? We had 2 lads from Denmark. We had 2 lads from Brazil. and it was wow. Some would say coming from the Black Country, I struggle to speak English. So, all these things were sort of going, and a little bit of self-doubt. How do I fit into this group? And I remember Roland saying to me, look, Simon, with the internet today, everybody thinks they know you, but they don't. They think they've got access to information, but it's their opinion. What they don't know, they don't know. So go and tell the lads something that they don't know about you.
Yeah.
And that's all I said. I didn't need to say name, where I'd be, my experiences. They knew all that. I just said that, I'm here, I'm lonely, I don't have a family at the moment. And if anyone would like to take the opportunity to go out for a bite to eat and get to know each other, then I'll put the list up on the office door. Let me know what works. And by the end of the following month, every one of the 24-man squad had spent a day with me or an afternoon with me after training. And that was such an insight to coaching, because it really did emphasise. We'd got 6 international footballers. And they weren't all just from Sweden. And if you're a manager, a coach, you're a leader, you have to understand the person. You have to connect
100%.
with the person.
Yeah.
And to see that in a foreign country where English wasn't their first language taught me it's not just about football, it's about people and relationships. So that I often look back at the time there, and it was 4 brilliant years. And yes, we had some great success, won the league twice on the pitch, but the most memorable thing for me, Aaron, was actually seeing people develop and maximise their performances. And I remember speaking to the captain at the time, a few years after. We'd had a good run in the Champions League. We got past Rangers at Ibrox.
Yeah.
And he'd actually moved on. His career had developed. He'd moved on to Germany. And he was playing at Hoffenheim, and he said to me, Simon, I remember that great night at Ibrox. I remember the feeling, but what was the score? And I thought, wow, it was only 3 or 4 years on from a fantastic experience for everyone. And I said, it was 1-0. And he said, oh, yeah, that's right. I remember there was 40,000 there. I remember how we felt before we left the dressing room. And I remember, the feeling we all had in the team and what you'd said and the training the night before. But I just can't remember the score. And I think that in itself, Aaron, just tells you the importance of people always remember how they feel in situations. But they don't always remember what you tell them, or sometimes what you show them. And again, it just, we had 18 games in the Champions League, Europa League group stages. Great experiences, travelling to Kharkiv, travelling to Vienna. But it wasn't just about the games, it was the journey, the connection, and seeing these players develop was the most memorable thing. And that's something that after 4 years that I got the opportunity to move to Norway. And I took the opportunity because I just felt I wanted to keep experiencing different cultures. I wanted to keep experiencing different challenges. And SK Brann, or Brann-Bergen as they were originally known, was at a very different stage to what Malmo was.
Yeah.
It also coincided with that my wife hadn't been well, and we just felt as a family that it was an opportunity to give our 2 children an experience that they wouldn't have if we stayed in England or stayed within a comfort zone. And they were young enough to allow us to do that. And 2 years in Norway just again allowed me to experience a different culture, a different club, far different challenges, and again it just felt that it added another layer to me. We weren't as successful on the pitch, but that then meant that I'd experienced something very different. And after 2 years there, I got the opportunity, and to work with Kent Nielsen, who used to play for Aston Villa, the really impressive centre back from Denmark, and Kent was working at OB, which Odense Ball Club in the heart of Denmark, and he wanted an assistant with sort of English background, having played in England. I think he had a feel for that, and that led me to have 2 years with Kent. And from the managers that I worked with, from Roland to Kent, it really does give you an insight as to what good looks like and what's important. And also on the flip side, the best coaches are very often the best thieves, because they take things from different coaches, different situations, and by having more experiences, you get those insights. And it was just, in total, 8 years, just invaluable. Made some great friends, met some wonderful people. Both me, my wife, my children still speak so fondly about it. And I remember when we first came back, my children were just looking to sort of, in a way, engage with the English education system and adapting to that system, because that's probably one of the biggest challenges we faced. In Scandinavia, they learn by play, they learn by feel, they learn by experience. Here is a very different education system. And I remember my daughter, who was 9 when she went into the education system here. She said, "I don't understand this, just because people are saying to me, you're back home." But she said, "I've spent 8/9 of my life abroad, so how am I coming back home?" And to her, she said, I'm not English, I'm Scandinavian. And it sort of taught us a lesson, again, unless you understand the person, you can't in any way understand what perception they have in their life. And that, so as we know, kids can teach us very often things that are usually very honest. And it was just, when I look back at the 8 years, it was just a phenomenal experience. If I was selfish, I'd say for myself, I was acutely aware of the sacrifices my wife had made, because that meant that we, as a family unit, we had to be together. But then we look back, and there's no doubt cognitively they benefited enormously. They're very mature for their ages, and I look back at that 8 years with real pride, not just in what was achieved with football, but actually the experiences it gave them. So, as I said at the top, it's amazing what experience sport can give you that otherwise probably wouldn't be available.
No, 100%. And it was quite, throughout the whole of that, it was really interesting listening to that, to be fair, Simon, going on about all your experiences across, Scandinavia, coming back to England and everything else. Do you think like those, going back to like the uni stuff at the top of the episode, do you think those, values that you learnt at university are something that you've brought right through into your career now?
Yeah, because at university, I also benefited from having really good tutors, really good mentors, people who'd got great experience in sport. So although it was sports science, the degree, because people told me, if you go into uni, Simon, go and do something that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Because your inherent learning will always come out in a subject area. And the physiology, the psychology, the social psychology, the biomechanics, that always really interested me. As someone with a deep interest in sport. And a lot of the coaching that we see and we apply today really leads to a lot of these areas being untapped in many ways. We know that the mind controls the body, yet we're so driven sometimes as coaches, and we're so focused on just the technique of what we see in front of us, or what we see. It's the old adage, isn't it? Winning very often trumps performance, and we're just so focused on certain aspects. So not only did I find the whole 4 years at university fascinating, but I also learnt a lot about the importance of being in good environments, being informed by really educated people, being led and advised by people who have a feel for the situations.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones who give you the golden nuggets. They're the ones who can give you the golden insights and really lead you into an area of thinking and understanding that a textbook can't. To contextualize things is phenomenal. I remember in just fast tracking a few years in Denmark, our pre-season overlapped with the education system, and I remember speaking to the head of the international school saying, is there any possibility we can take our children out for a couple of weeks to go on holiday? And he said, absolutely. He said, because life and experience is where the real learning takes place, not in the classroom. And I thought, wow, this is the headmaster of a school encouraging you to take your children out of school. And he said, where are you going? I said, oh, we're going to Italy. And he said, great. When they come back, I'd like them both to just give a 10-minute presentation to their classes about the importance of traveling Italy, talk about Rome, talk about the Colosseum, talk about that. And I thought, this is magnificent. And he said, the associated learning that takes place, we all benefit. And in 4 months, my son was fluent in Danish.
Yeah.
And yes, I know that the child brain is very different to older people like me. But that was an incredible period where, I say, within 4 months, he was able to learn a foreign language. And it was all by play. It was all by experience. It was all by visual and kinesthetic things that had around him. You know, the grass was green, football, white, pass to the left, orange bib. All these things were through association, which, I'll be honest, I remember being at school and I studied French and I studied German. We went to France a couple of years ago and I was like, I think I said, du baguette. And I was like really proud of myself, you know, and I thought to myself, 2 years of learning comes down to 2 or 3 words. I remember Gasson, you know, Paris. I mean, it's embarrassing to think that, what was I doing in those 2 years? And what I realised, Aaron, was that I was actually staring at a textbook and told to read, and I had very little interest in it.
No, exactly.
And again, that's the feeling I had, which is why I probably didn't learn anything at all. So, as I said, university life really, for me, living away from home, really set me up for the move to go to Scandinavia. It gave me the insight, and of course, having wife and immediate family with you certainly gives you an extra layer of comfort and support, and also balance. You know, sport teaches you an incredible about yourself. You have to deal with success. You have to deal with defeat. You have to deal with injury. You have to deal with disappointment. You have to manage expectations. You know, you don't get this from a textbook.
No.
You get this from experience, and the passion initially in Malmo, where the expectation is to win every game. You know, the city's in mourning if you don't win on a Saturday, and it'll take 24, 48 hours. But my word, when you do win, the jubilation, the level of respect, it's polar. It's at the other end of the continuum, and to say, to see the happiness that gives people, it is phenomenal when you've got 22,000 packed into the stadium. But you're right, education is the bedrock today for principals. Remember a few months ago, I had the pleasure to talk to Chantel Cameron, the world champion female boxer, obviously from Northampton. And she said that school taught her things which have been pivotal to her becoming a world champion. And I thought, that is a phenomenal throwaway line, because people just see the belts, the bouts, the beatings she's given people and the punches. But what she said is she understood the importance of respect.
Mm.
She understood the importance of timekeeping. She understood the importance of determination. And these things are the nucleus to the person, and the morals and values that sit within you can be applied in different situations.
No, definitely. I mean, that's super interesting as well about the whole, for her to say that, the education system as well, because obviously, like you've alluded to throughout this so far about, you and your family and especially your children dealing with different education systems. It's very fascinating to hear all that sort of stuff. I mean, just before I bring Zach into it, I wanted to bring forward something that you mentioned about when you were at Malmo and building those relationships so early doors, and just as a coach building relationships. How important and how pivotal is that for you as a coach to build relationships early, not just with players, Simon, but also like your fellow coaches, your fan base, and so forth as well?
I think it's everything, Aaron. I look at the clubs I've been at. Of course, you've got players on the pitch, you've got coaches, you've got sports science staff, physio staff, doctors, recruitment staff, scouts, kitmen, analysts. They all play an incredible role to actually getting that environment right.
Mm-hmm.
But in an extension of those staff, you've got sporting directors, chief executives, directors of football, chairmen, board members, key media people, media relationships as well.
Yeah.
And the one thing for me is that very often people from the outside forget is the relationship with the supporters. It's so insightful. It's so insightful, and it really is powerful, because look, I, as I said, grew up supporting West Brom, and we all know that's boing, 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 and all those. Of course, over the 50 years, I think it's well documented. There's been times where it's been referenced as a Premier League club. There's other times it's a yo-yo club.
Yeah.
And look, we know this is the journey of football that a lot of clubs often experience. So as a supporter, I actually have an incredible understanding of what it means to support your team, because players and coaches always come and go at different clubs, whether it's in the non-league setup or in League One, League Two, the Football League, or certainly the Premier League. Players and coaches always come and go, but supporters and administrators, that's their club.
Yeah.
It's in their blood, and I think it's incredibly powerful. As I said, if everyone can come together, everyone can understand, genuinely understand, and know exactly what it is that management staff, what are they dealing with? What's those players dealing with? And yes, there's a difference between the professional setup at Malmo and the non-league setup here, of course, because the contact time with players is so different.
Yeah.
Malmo, we could, if we had a Champions League or Europa League game, we'd often leave, 36, 48 hours before. You have to be in the city. You do your training within, 24 hours before. So travel time and so you could be with players sitting next to each other on aircrafts, on buses, in hotels, for 3 days.
Yeah.
You contrast that with the normal pre-season and pre-season camps. We had 4 brilliant years in the US, 2-week training camps. So you're with them for 2 continuous weeks. You contrast that with the non-league setup today, where you might see a player for 2 or 3 hours on a Tuesday, a couple of hours, 2 or 3 hours on a Thursday, and then a game day. I mean, that's 10, 12 hours in total in the 168 in a week. But it comes back to one thing, Aaron.
Yeah.
It's having a relationship with those people. So those are just players. But the relationship with all those key football staff personnel, for me, is equally important, because in good environments, really successful, high performance environments, people are aligned.
Yeah.
But they're all aligned. Yes, they want to win the league. Yes, they want to win the game. That's one thing. But they're actually all aligned in terms of the real nucleus, the real essence of the challenges that we're on, that how to manage the playing staff, how to manage the expectation, how to manage the situation on that day, in that week, in that season. And that's where the most successful organisations become or come from. And I look at Malmo, I think about my time in Brann, I think about my time in Odense, and I've had some experiences in between in England, non-league, league. But I look at Kettering as a football club, and it's got some incredible people.
No, it definitely
both
does.
Connected with the playing staff, but away from the playing staff, people on the board, the knowledge, the experience. And then I extend that further. We had a fans forum just over a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
It was phenomenal what the supporters were saying and the experiences they've had. Not all of them over the last 153 years, of course, but certainly in, one guy was 88, and telling me about the journey of the club, and it's wonderful to hear, because throughout all this, he said he sees himself as a supporter, and the most important thing is, before making any comment or assumption, he wanted to understand where the club was at, where the current staff were at. And we said at the forum, it's easy to make an assumption and say, well, he should have played him, he should have played him. But the reality is, today at non-league, most of these guys have families, so they have personal things to take care of. They all have to work, generally. So they have some professional commitments.
Yeah.
They also have other challenges, maybe around family and friends that's creating a worry for them, or an anxiety. So actually it's a smaller amount of time that you see in terms of contact, but it's probably more important to understand them as people.
No, definitely.
Away from just the connection. But it goes back to your point. What did I learn from university, and what did I learn from my time in Scandinavia? It's the importance of relationships. And like I said up top, I think, what's the quote? Experience is not what the man has done, it's what he has done with what he has done.
Yeah.
Is the experience. And when I often think about that quote, I think, yeah, we can talk about, oh, I went here, I went there, I worked at that club, but it's actually, what have I done with those experiences?
100%, yeah.
That really is. And I'm just fortunate I had two parents who gave me the morals and the values for life. And I think they were just kicking me out of the house, to be honest, because they said you need to get to university. So, but I took that as a compliment.
You didn't really have much of a choice.
Yeah. And academically, I thought, oh, I must be quite bright then, and I realised that actually, I'm never going to win Mastermind. So I'll just take their lead, get out their hair, for a few years, and of course, as we know, it's a journey, isn't it?
No, 100%.
Life, and one thing often leads to another, and one experience often opens up another door or closes another door, and that for me is what I look back on.
Yeah, definitely.
With so many different memories and feelings.
Yeah. Hey, Zach, I'll bring you into this now then, mate, obviously, because is there anything, that Simon spoke about so far that you've picked up on or you want to bring forward?
Yeah. So sort of talking about the character of players and like sort of your values and your morals, sort of like now being a manager, sort of looking, like when you're looking to bring in a player, sort of, do you look for the character? Most importantly, do they have the right character for like your team?
Yeah, great question, Zach. The answer is yes. Character for me is everything. The best players that I've worked with are the best people. They don't need me to say whether they've played well enough or not. They say, coach, how can you improve my performance? They are rock solid in themselves. Their self-security, self-awareness that's just on a different level. They're completely honest. They've got a great growth mindset. They understand that actually they haven't maximised their performance. And that's the driver for them, just continually looking at ways to improve. So the character, especially in a season of 42 games, in a non-league season, when the season starts on Saturday, we've got 3 games in 8 days. We've got 5 games in 17 days. I mean, it's a really intense start. And yeah, it's 42 games over the course of the season. But the person behind the player is the driving force, because the quickest way to improve a player today is to improve the person. We can show them on a tactics board, we can show them a video clip, of course, but the player has got to want to keep improving. The player's got to be thirsty for that information. We know that knowledge is power, and that, untraining or detraining what's ingrained and trained is one of the hardest things for a coach to actually have to deal with. And I think we've seen throughout many different examples where players seem to just express themselves so differently in different teams compared to other teams.
Yeah.
But is that just position? Is that something they feel? Is that because they're at a different stage of their career? Is that their teammates? Is that the environment? Is that the dressing room? And I know money's important to players today. And let's be honest, there's less money in the world and things have got more expensive and more challenging for a lot of people. Full respect for that. But essentially, when you're talking to players about recruitment, if the motivation, generally, Zach, is extrinsic, i.e. financial, it's probably not going to work.
Yeah.
If it's intrinsic, like, you could say we've basically revamped the squad at Kettering this year. We had 7 players who were involved last year, but the other 13 are currently in the squad. 2 have come back to the club, but the rest are new to the team or new to the club. But they're talking about the history. Why Kettering? Why would you be interested in joining Kettering? And these players are talking about, well, the history of the club, the tradition of the club, the ambition of the club. I know the supporters. They often say, when I played there with this team, or I just remember there was over 2,000 when I played there. It was a cold, wet Tuesday night, and there was 1,700 there. When it was sunny, and they talk. That's the feeling they have for the club as players. And the other thing which attracts players is relationships or reputation. So there's one thing understanding the club and recognising that this is a really big club in non-league football, but actually having a feel for it as well is more getting into the intrinsic feel for what this actually means. It meant a lot for me to play for Kettering, Simon. Whoa, why? Oh, look at the history. Look at the players that you've got there. Look at the ambition of the club. Look at the supporters. Some great players have played there. The Wolves fans will say, Derek Dugan was there. West Brom, Ron Atkinson was there, and Paul Gascoigne was there for 40 odd days. I mean, all these things that people associate with the club itself. And when players are talking about their ambitions, when their ambitions are aligned to what the club's ambitions are, then it all goes well
Yeah.
for the future. We know there's so many variables. Players can get ill, players can get injured, suspensions, personal problems that they have to deal with and we have to manage. Of course, that can just disrupt the flow of any team. And as I said, the season is so long that these things will present themselves. But there's no doubt the most successful performance environments all seem to have fantastic dressing rooms.
Yeah.
Where the dressing room polices the culture.
No.
As a manager, it's the player's office. That's where the culture comes from, and that's one thing that, again, going back to the experience that I've had from Malmo through Denmark through Norway and back into England, the quality of the character of the players is so instrumental in the environment that dressing room then presents itself.
Yeah. With
both at training, match days, how they conduct themselves as people, and it's something that's really at the core of our recruitment drive during the last couple of months.
No, definitely. And I think just to kind of build on that from what Zach was saying before I bring him back into it about, having those right characters in the changing room, Simon. One that, like you said, someone returning to the club this summer, is one of them was George Forsyth. Well, so you worked with at Banbury as well. And I've sat down with George. I've had a podcast with him before. A fantastic person to talk to, isn't he? Like a real humble guy. And what's he like in the changing room? Because he comes across as a natural leader.
Yeah, I think you just summed him up. And what's fascinating is that's the feeling you had, Aaron, just for spending some time with him on a podcast. He's very natural, very natural. I think the best leaders, the most successful people are natural. They have an innate ability to connect with people. Yeah. He's got great morals.
No, definitely, yeah.
Great values. Puts a high price on respect. He's got incredible insight to non-league football. Let's not forget, his dad had a really, really successful career at Birmingham and Stoke. So football's part of the family. But I look at what George does away from Kettering, the coaching, the opportunities that he gives children from very, very challenging backgrounds.
Yeah.
And he uses football as that vehicle to teach them about themselves, to educate them, both in life and with football. But giving people knowledge is, for me, is the most invaluable thing that you can give in life. And it's just fascinating to hear your take on George as a person. Even when I was at Banbury and we were looking for another experienced head, but still someone who's at the prime of his career.
Yeah.
All roads pointed to George. And look, so many people in the game have the highest respect for him.
No, definitely.
Both players, coaches, administrators. And we can't all be wrong. That's so when the opportunity presented itself in the summer that he'd made the decision that he wanted to move on from Banbury, I think, well, I know of 6 clubs that were keen on him. And it certainly wasn't a foregone conclusion. He took his time, he went away, he considered everything where he was at. He's a very measured man, and when George speaks, it's what he means. But his communication skills are, for me, absolutely top level. And it says a lot about him as a character. It says a lot about his formative years. That the only thing really that I can find as a criticism is that he supports Wolves. And being someone from West Brom,
yeah, that's fair. That's a
I
fair
have to,
criticism. Yeah,
yeah, I have to overlook that when we're
Mm.
talking, and we try and use the playing career and the insight that his dad's got, having been so successful at Birmingham and Stoke and Kidderminster. We use that as a happy medium when we're talking about other clubs. But
Yeah.
no, I think people know what Kettering means to George, and they also know what George means to Kettering. So it feels right. It
Yeah,
really does, and
definitely.
sits together very well.
And it comes back to what we've been, what we said throughout this podcast as well about building relationships, doesn't it? Because obviously you must have a really good relationship with George, and the way you speak about him so highly there, it all comes back down to that, doesn't it? And building relationships.
Yeah, and I'd like to think it's mutual. I know him as a person. He knows me as a person.
Yeah.
That's the same with all the lads that I worked with at Banbury last year, and hopefully the lads at Kettering this year. That's probably the most important building block in the foundation, is that relationship. We often are more aware of the relationship in individual sports between the athlete and the coach, of course.
Yeah.
But team sport, again, the coach athlete, the coach player relationship fundamentally is equally as important, because you want players who maximize their performance. You want players who maximize their ability, and unless you understand that person behind the player, I think it becomes harder
Yeah.
to do that. So we keep going back to relationships, but also we know it's a results. Many people say, "Oh, it's a results industry." Yeah, I get that, but how do you improve results? How do you actually hope to maximise the cards that you've got? It's not just about winning the league, as we know. For some clubs, some teams, to actually survive relegation, to finish in certain areas of the league table, that's success. How many times does the manager of the year in different league? It doesn't always get given to the team who wins the league.
Yeah.
It's the challenges that had to be overcome. It's the relationships with players and the adaptability of the club to deal with situations. Very often tells you about how the club is connected with the staff. And look, the most important thing is, as we know, the connection that a manager will have with the players, but also it's actually managing up as well. And that the leader, not the boss, that the leader is someone who obviously has to have both equally aligned to him as a character, because the football club is one aspect, but the playing group is what often represents the club on obviously on the pitch. So it's a fascinating role, and it's something that for me I've been able to obviously learn a lot from those experiences that we talked about.
Yeah, definitely. And Zach, have you got anything to add at all so far than what we spoke about so far, mate?
Oh yeah, so sort of, I get a sense like from you. It's really just like building a positive dressing room, positive outlook. Lost my words now. But it's like building that positive outlook. Do you want your players to sort of just have that love for the game and like enjoy going out there every time and like enjoy playing their football?
Yeah, that motivation has to come within. It's got to be in their spine. I think you ask any player today, they just want to play. That's that's what they train for. That's what they sign up to, and to find the maximum sort of talents in the individuals very often beyond what they believe they can achieve is what fuels my philosophy. Really, we talk a lot about football philosophies, but to see their hunger, their determination, their passion, their in a way, are they an inherent performer? Do they perform on a Tuesday night when after 10 minutes you're 2-0 down, you've had a man sent off, everyone's moaning about a referee's decision which has cost you, it's raining. Inherent performers stand up and perform. And for me, when you've got a dressing room of inherent performers, you give yourself the best chance because they have to meet the commonality of the plan of the team, and it's very often the mentality, the attitude that comes back to character. We don't have the contact time to suddenly teach the skills that a player doesn't have. You can't suddenly teach you. Yes, they can have work-ons. Yes, they can have, things that they need to be working on, their key sort of individual learning programs and things. Yeah, we can do that. We can keep chipping away at that. We can keep developing that. But it's very often their super strengths, which is why, as a coach, you want a player at that club for or in your team. So constructing the team is an area that really fascinates me because it's got to be aligned to how you want the team to play, ideally. But in terms of getting the team to play in a certain way, then you need individuals to be maximising their performance within that team structure, and getting that maximum talent out of the individual is the bit that really fascinates me, because that's the bit that it might be 0.5%, but I've seen it in that's the bit, is the extra bit of chemistry which bonds players in a dressing room, which bonds relationships with coaches, staff, and very often bonds relationships with a club, which is incredibly important. So it goes back to feeling, it goes back to inherent performers. That's the bit as a coach that really, really fascinates me. Because that, put together in a dressing room of inherent performers, put together with the right characters, is something we all work towards as a coach, and ultimately, hopefully, drives matches that you win, and drives the number of successes that you have during the course of a season, all roads pointing towards what the goal is at the end of the season.
No, and I guess like to follow on from that a little bit then, Simon, like obviously Zach spoke about character and so forth. Moving forward from that, what are like your non-negotiables then that you look at for a player, within a player, or whether that's on the pitch or off the pitch, what are some of your non-negotiables in coaching?
Well, first thing is, why do they want to play for that club?
Yeah.
As a supporter, we just want people giving every bit of energy that they've got. Give it. That's all we can ask of people today. With anything, isn't it? Let's be honest. Did they do their best? Did they try the hardest? Some days it won't work. We've seen, I think I read the other day, Roger Federer only wins 56% of his games. Yet he's one of the most successful male athletes ever in sport.
Yeah.
But he will obviously be in control of the situation. And the non-negotiables for me are, what do they bring to that club? What do they bring? Because I want the supporters to be happy. We all do. And the non-negotiable for me, the starting point is maximum effort.
Yeah.
maximum effort should fit alongside what we've just talked about there, maximising someone's talent. And if you put the two together, usually you give yourself the best performance. And if we have maximum performance, it usually leads to winning.
Yeah.
I saw a stat that UEFA did when I was in Sweden. The teams who ran over 105 Ks in Europa League, Champions League qualifiers, 99% of the time won the game. So, yes, there will be coincidental moments. We all know that somebody can curl one in from 30 yards and you say, wow, how's that happened against us? We all know the officials can't get every decision right, and you're feeling incredible injustice. And we have to accept it.
Mm-hmm.
But let's be brutally honest. The one thing that a supporter expects is maximum effort. And maximum effort, maximum intensity. And the only other non-negotiable, which if you need to edit it, is no dickheads in the changing room.
No, that's fine by me, mate.
Yeah. Because let's be honest, it's a passion for these guys.
Yeah.
It's a passion for all the staff. It usually fits together with what they have, what challenges they have personally and professionally in their life.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's a Tuesday, whether it's a Thursday, whether it's a game day on a bank holiday Monday, or more likely on a Saturday, you actually want to enjoy that experience.
Yeah.
Of trying to win the game in the right way with the right people. And I just will not accept when so many players today and non-players, and in terms of the staff, are doing everything they can. You can't have one or two people showing complete disrespect to the environment.
No.
Because that just upsets the balance with everything. And that for me are the two non-negotiables.
No, I think that's
work rate,
to say that, yeah.
intensity, and not being a dickhead.
I think it's really interesting you say that about, especially with the one at the end, the no dickheads one, trying to keep that balance, because it's crucial, isn't it? Especially, in competitive sport, in a squad, team competitive sport, isn't it, Simon? Keeping that balance.
Yeah. Emotion is part of the game. It's part of the dressing room. I think it's ring fenced by respect.
Yeah.
Certainly for your teammates. There's a time and a place to have honest conversations. It's not in the public domain. It's not on social media. We're all adults. We're all human beings.
Yeah.
Everyone has feelings. Everyone has emotions. And it's picking the right times, the right ways to show those emotions.
Definitely. Yeah,
we can all show disappointment. But at times it's very challenging when we feel an injustice. Absolutely. I understand that. But at training, we train with max intensity. The quality of our intensity in training is the thing that we crave.
Yeah.
And put high value on. There's going to be times when a player catches another player because we want contact. That's what happens on a Saturday. There's going to be times where you're going to feel irritated. You might have had a long day at work, and then it just takes something just to tip. But as we said during the last few weeks, look, it's fine, but just discuss it and be clear on where you're both at before you leave the white line. Because the next time you leave the dressing room or walk back over the white line is probably a game, and you need each other.
Yeah.
And the one thing we all want when we wear the same shirt is pride and trust in each other.
No, 100%. Hey, Zach, is there anything you've got to add at all before I start to talk about Banbury and Kettering at all?
No, I think we're ready to move on to that.
Perfect. Well, I mean, I'll talk about Banbury and Kettering then, Simon, quickly then, because obviously being at step three, it's a challenging league, isn't it? And especially the Southern League, there's a lot of competition for places in terms of league table and so forth. But one thing that stood out for, I think, a lot of people who followed the division last season when you were at Banbury was obviously the defensive record and being,
Yeah,
the best defense in the division statistically. And, in a division where you look at, Telford had Matty Stenson up front, Kettering having Niall Ranger and Johnny Edwards for a while, Leaston having Jamal Loza before he went to Kettering. That's without
yeah,
even mentioning Hale Owen's duo of Donnelly and T. So how important was
yeah,
it for you to set up that tight defence to, be hard to break down in this division?
yeah. It's a great question. I remember that when I first started there, we had contract offers out to just 3 players.
Mm,
One of them accepted, the other 2 moved on, and we had to build a whole squad.
yeah,
We had to build, apart from two members of the backroom staff, a new backroom staff.
mm,
So to see the squad grow, in total, I think we used 28 players. We had 12 in the backroom staff.
mm-hmm,
That needed to evolve very quickly.
yeah,
I remember as a manager one day sitting back and thinking, I've got 41 touch points
mm,
that absolutely I need those relationships to be in place with. And the players, the coaching staff were by far the most important relationships.
yeah,
We set off on a journey with a budget that was very modest compared to a lot of other clubs.
mm-hmm,
I have full respect for the situation. The club had just been relegated from the National League North. I think it had only been in the 93 years in its history, it had only been in that league twice.
mm,
So this was really understanding where the club was at.
mm-hmm,
It's a centre point for many in the town
yeah,
of Banbury. And I think when we got into the season and we look back, I take great pride in how the players conducted themselves
mm-hmm,
and dealt with certain situations. And I know through the relationships I've had and I've got with them all, the commitment that they gave
yeah,
was phenomenal. We talk about inherent performers. Some of the criticism they got was just totally unfair and ill-knowledged.
mm-hmm,
Some of the best performances we had, just you look back and the control we had in games
mm,
with a goal scorer, it just would have very often made a significant difference.
yeah,
So we certainly, I remember talking to a couple of supporters once. They said, "Oh, remember I think we're about 10 games in. Why are we playing 5 at the back?" And we've never played 5 at the back. We were playing 3-2-4-1, 3-4-2-1.
mm,
But you've got people in the wide area on the left and wide area on the right who were incredible athletes,
yeah,
incredible people, and they were so determined to join in the defensive action and then commit to the attacking action.
mm-hmm,
And I look back at the efforts, the energy that those guys gave.
mm,
It's phenomenal, and commitment to each other from the dressing room, and they took pride in each other. They took pride in themselves,
yeah,
and again, it goes back to relationships and the defensive record. Yeah, is something that they talk fondly about, and rightly so as players, because defenders should love to defend
yeah,
and attackers should love to score. And the stats presented itself that as we know, Bedford won the league, and at the time, Banbury conceded 20 less goals than Banbury, than Bedford. So all roads pointed to where we just needed that extra investment, and we tried different avenues. Got some fantastic people at the club, who will remain friends, because at the end of the day, it's just sport. As I said, players and coaches come and go, and they're working so hard and diligently to try and maximise the situation. I've got nothing but respect for everyone there, and like we saw throughout the course of the season, with the supporters travelling home and away, and the commitment to the players, it's ingrained. It means a lot to them, and it's something I look back on with those 13 months, as I said, with an invaluable experience. It was really invaluable. Not just getting to know the league, but seeing how constructing of a team takes time. The importance of inherent performers. We had 9 lads on 50 quid a week or less in a squad, and there was only a handful of players who sort of moved on, and that told you the strength of the dressing room. Some of the players we recruited during the sort of mid-phase of the season were talking about, we want to come because we heard you're trying to play good football. We've heard about the quality, the dressing room. As a player, that's telling me they're focusing on their motivation.
Yeah, exactly.
And that for me again contributed significantly to the outcome. And you look back as a team, as a coach, as a player, and you think, I wish I'd have done that. I could have done that. Hindsight's a wonderful thing in different times, but there's significant learning that took place, and I think it says everything when things really are important, when you take a step back. And as I said, the relationships with people off the pitch, some of the volunteers there give their life, their time to everything there, and also with the players and the coaching staff, the management staff that came and joined me during the course of the season. It was an incredible 13 months, and I think everyone in those touch points, I look back, and the commitment, the time, the effort they gave, ultimately is something that should be commended.
Yeah, most definitely. And then honestly, coming into Kettering ahead of this new season, the season obviously starts at Royston on this Saturday. You've had the pre-season now to evaluate and, like you see, oversee. We kind of said about earlier, but oversee a squad turnover. You've had new players coming in, players coming back to the club and whatnot. But what have your thoughts been on pre-season so far?
It's been really busy, Aaron. Yes, squad turnover. We've currently added 13 to the 7 who were there and involved last season. But apart from the recruitment, which has took a significant effort, we've got 8 people who are committed to the recruitment. From George, the owner, Fabian, the director of football. We've got scouts, we've got analysts, we've got other coaches. And you think about the significant time given to the diligence that goes into getting the right players. Everyone needs to be aligned. Everyone has to be aligned. And what's been, for me, so insightful is seeing how many relationships come from those 8 people in terms of their commitment to understanding so much about the player that we're looking to bring in. So the spin-off from that in itself should sort of highlight the number of phone calls, the amount of time, the amount of virtual meetings, the amount of obviously communication today has moved on since my early years, and even in Sweden it was like, I've got a mobile phone. Wow, have you? And but virtual was Skype. Have you heard of Skype?
Yeah.
No. What's Skype? So to think how recruitment and communications used to be to now, obviously it's it's polar opposite.
Yeah, definitely.
But it also leads to people being anywhere in the world, both on holiday during the last 6 weeks, or on business, or with personal situations. We're contactable, and that's allowed us to have a really, really insightful 6 weeks of squad building, meetings, communications. The amount of data that's available today, even for non-league clubs, the amount of insights from different platforms, it's phenomenal.
No, definitely.
So we'd like to think that the players we have brought in have fitted in to the profile that we wanted.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating is you talk about the character of the person. That's probably, as a coach, the hardest thing to get to know and to learn, because with all the different platforms today, we can see that the 12 goals he scored last season, or we can see when he played step 2 years ago. We can see. We've got access to that data. We've got access to some of that footage. Every player who's got an agent, adds another layer to the conversation. Every agent tells us that his player is incredible. He's phenomenal. Okay. But we have to balance that with their perception of what they actually want, and we know it's this. Let's be brutally honest.
Yeah.
So it goes back to the quality of the player. It goes back to quality of the person, inherent performer. What would they bring compared to what we've already got in the squad? How can they add to the squad? If we're playing a back three, we need maybe an extra centre back compared to if we were just playing a standard back four. All these things. Do we want to play with wing backs, or do we want full backs? How do we want our midfielders to operate? Do we want our forwards to be inverted? Do we want them to be genuine wingers? Do we want to play build up? Do we want to play possession-based football? Or do we want to operate with speed? So all of these things need to be considered when we're selecting a player or recruiting a player.
Yeah.
But what's fascinating is, and we've said it a number of times on this call, the most important bit is the quality of the character.
100%. Most definitely. I also, in terms of those signings, quickly before I was there, bring Zach back into it. I just want to say, I've been as a Kettering fan, I've been very impressed with a number of them, and the one the other day which I was very impressed with was Will Glennon from Bedford. And me and Zach did a podcast the other day looking at, because Zach follows the Isthmian League down south.
Okay.
So we did a podcast, looking at both leagues as a whole, talking about whatnot and like our dream signings, or our the signings we want to come into our club. And Will was someone I identified because I've seen him play at Bedford, I've seen him play at St Ives, and I've seen a couple of interviews with him. And like we said already about character, seems like a real good character, and still being relatively young and still at the beginning of his career as such. Really,
spot on.
He seems like a really good character to have. So again, back into that recruitment, was that something you were looking at when looking at him?
Absolutely right, Aaron. And look, you're knowledgeable, you're insightful. You've built up your perception of Will from different experiences, different teams he's played for, different situations, different research, different comparables. So that's how and that usually leads to a successful recruitment of a player.
Yeah.
And this wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. It's someone that, being brutally honest, got recommended to me when I was at Banbury last season.
Yeah.
A lot of players were recommended at different times, of course, and it's finding at that time what's the right fit for what we needed. And I remember the recommendation. It came from two of my closest friends who were in step one.
Yeah.
And they were talking to me about Will is on the radar, and that stuck with me.
Mm.
But then when Kettering approached Banbury, it was the end of May on the bank holiday Monday. I remember I was spending time with my mother, and I got a phone call from the chairman at Banbury to tell me there'd been an approach.
Yeah.
Of course, since that point to now, it's been an incredibly busy time, and with training, giving time to relationship building, current staff, current players, new staff, all the wonderful people who operate at the club in so many different key roles. And Will was still in the sort of list of possibles, but wasn't quite, for me, it wasn't just our only focus in terms of recruitment.
Yeah.
And then when we found he'd moved to Bedford, it was, okay, that a little bit disappointing because, like you said, like you have, done a lot of research on Will and a lot of other players and believed he could fit in to how we play. He's at a great stage of his career. He lives quite locally, so that's the other important feature when you're recruiting players. Location, and his motivation for play is not financially driven. His motivation for playing is to maximise his talent. And when I first heard that he'd moved to Bedford, there was a tinge of disappointment because I thought that's someone who could really add to where we want this journey to go this season and beyond. We're trying to make signings, and we're trying to make decisions on players who will naturally keep evolving and give us the quality both in the short term, but also lead us to become the nucleus of the team next season. And so it's got to be really purposeful and deliberate, in line with what we want. And really pleased to get Will. We heard that his sort of motivations for playing this season probably wasn't going to get the game time that he thought at Bedford. And that's ultimately what sort of engineered the discussions over the last week. Being a local boy, he's got a feel for the club, not just because he played there, not because he's played against Kettering, but he's got a real feeling. I believe he was at the playoff final. I believe he went to the playoff semi-final. This is someone who has a real feel for the club, has a real feel for the level as well, understands the league, and he's still quite young. So I and everyone else at the club is delighted to get him on board, and he fitted in seamlessly at training earlier this week.
No, definitely. I mean, Zach, have you got anything at all to add at all before I slowly start to round it off with some touchy stuff?
Just a bit of a general question about Kettering. So, do you have sort of any immediate or long-term goals that you've set yourself with Kettering? Well,
the overriding ambition this year, Zach, is to try and get out this league. That's the goal, and as we know, sport can be cruel at times, and you look back at how fine the line is compared to the end of last season, how the second half of that second half in the playoff final can then determine the course of the following season for a club like Telford, and of course like Kettering. We know the line is so fine. We know there's so many variables go into the pot during the course of a season, but the overriding ambition is to get out this league. Hopefully, that's this season, and so that's the short term focus. Long term, let's be step by step. This club has phenomenal potential. we don't want to get too far ahead of itself. We know 153 years is a rich history, but has it been in the Football League?
No, it has not. No.
So, and again, this is not getting too far ahead, but one step at a time.
Yeah.
Phenomenal job, Andy Peakes and Neil Ciampolovi did at Tamworth to take Tamworth from step 3, step 2, step 1.
Definitely.
Kieran McKenna taken from League One to the Premier League with Ipswich. And it's about just getting the momentum. It's about getting the right people in the dressing room. It's about getting the right style, the right chemistry, the right rhythm. And variables can disrupt that, but it also can be really powerful when it clicks. And who knows what happens after the first step, if that's successful, where that can lead to. But of course, the most successful clubs for me have one eye on the future, one eye on the present, and you're hoping that the two become aligned and connected at some point in the middle. So it's just finding that balance. It's hugely exciting. Everyone's looking forward to Saturday, because that's ultimately what players want to do. It's ultimately what coaches want to be involved in, what clubs, what supporters want to be involved in. So very short term is just to focus on Royston away on Saturday. The season goal is to get out the league, and then let's then look at the next step. But I think I've sort of said and suggested enough where it would be wonderful to use one season success to move on to the next, and hopefully then progress to the league above. And it's got to be done progressively. And I know we want everything done now, but let's hope it's not now, it's this season, and then we can have another conversation about what the next target is. But it's always to be successful in terms of getting out the league that's in front of us.
No, yeah, definitely. And as a fan, I think that's. I know Kettering fans will obviously listen to this podcast, but I think it's really refreshing and really, I'm glad to hear that as well. That obviously you have the eye on obviously the long term, but also the short term goal and staying realistic, as you mentioned there. Zach, have you got anything to add at all then before I start to round us off?
No more.
Perfect. I mean, well, Simon, the final question I'll ask them, mate, is something we ask all our guests, and we use it as like a leave-in message as such. And it's the question I'm going to ask you is, if you have any advice for someone struggling to find their feet in football or in life in general, what would that be?
Talk to people who know you best. Talk to people you can trust. Talk to people who understand you as a person. And there's some great knowledge out there. It's really important for people of whatever age talk to each other. But I'll be honest, every day I talk to people who I know me. It's talking, and this is not just around mental health, but I guess it is. It's really important that we look after ourselves, we look after each other, and today there's so many challenges, so many things. Just be kind to yourself, be kind to each other, and just spend time with the people who actually know you as a person, and lean on their advice, lean on their wisdom. Experience makes people more insightful. What you don't know, you don't know. But the people around you who absolutely understand you have the insight to, if it's football that you need more, speak to people who know you. But those people, generally, good people gravitate towards good people. And it might be, who's the best person do they know who's had similar challenges as a coach, as a player. I lean on three people very, very close to my heart. Not just my wife, I should say that. But these guys who I've known for 20, 30 years, and also other people who've got to know me over the last 12, 18 months. They know me as people. They're honest with me. I'll speak to them every day. Talk to a lot of coaches today and successful people. They have mentors, they have role models. Learn from each other. And I just know that the impact, the benefit that I've had from that, and it's something that I was taught at an early age to actually sit and communicate with people. I saw a stat recently: the average secondary school student spends 35 hours a week on their mobile phone. They're not revising all the time, are they?
No, definitely not.
If they're not on, if they're not on anti-social media, let's be honest, they're on different platforms, different things. And yet there can be some learning that takes place. But let's communicate. And also, let's be approachable to people. Let's speak to people. Let's learn from each other. And that would be my message. I said it at the fans forum. And I will say, I think the fans at the away games we've had so far and the home game we had on Saturday, phenomenal.
Yeah.
Both in numbers, but also in their knowledge, their understanding, their ambition. Now, I'm only getting that feeling because I've talked to them and they've talked to me. And that's what makes this journey and this club so exciting. The conversations with the supporters, and the feeling they have for this team, the feeling they have for this club, and the appreciation they have for people being honest, working so hard. That goes from the owner, George, Fabian, director of football, hospitality staff, the club secretary, the board, the club staff. So many people are working so hard for this. And if it can be together with an understanding and a real feeling of affection for the support for the players, just imagine how powerful this can be, because it's a magnificent non-league football club at the moment. It's the reputation goes before it, but those relationships with each other and the opportunity to talk and learn from each other is something that we should all learn from.
No, it definitely is 100%. And I think that rounds us off pretty perfectly, to be honest, because Simon, I think, thank you for taking the time to speak to us today. I really appreciate it. Sitting here and listening to all your experiences and all your insights with everything, it's been fascinating to listen to you, mate.
Much appreciated, Aaron, and Zach as well. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Really enjoyed listening to you. I think
one
of my personal favourites.